One of the most common questions that I get asked is how to modify a V-neck sweater. If you have another question that you'd like to ask a knitter, go pop it into the comments below. But for now, let's get started on today's sweater knitting question. If you have a design like this that is a V-neck and you either want to change where the position of the V-neck is or even change it into something like this, a crew neck like this, you're going to need to do a little bit of modification. So to begin with, the kind of questions that are the main question that I would start with, first of all, is which way is the pattern or is the sweater or cardigan actually knit? Because that's going to impact how you go about doing it, and I suppose where the kind of levels of difficulty you're going to hit are. So this particular one was bottom up and it was joined together on the shoulder. So what that means is for this one, I think it was around about the armhole level or maybe a little higher, you began doing decreases across here. So for a V-neck, that's how you're going to actually create the V, is that it's going to be a steady, regular decrease if you're going up, or if you're coming down, steady increase. The speed of the increase is going to determine how wide or how fast the V is going to happen. So for instance, the kind of things you may want to do with this is you might go, I actually really like a V-neck, but I would like it to be maybe not quite as wide. I don't want the neck as wide. So in that case, what you're going to do is, first of all, you'd probably start doing those decreases a little further up. So assuming, say there was 20 decreases going up here and you're like, I don't want the neck as wide. I just want 15 decreases on each place. Take a look at how many rows that's going to be and figure out probably close to every right side you want to be, it'd be every right side row would be where you'd be doing it, and figure out where that's going to hit, and then you can start the decreases from that point going up. Because the alternative is that if you left the decreases starting here and then you just stop decreasing, it will work okay, but the depth of it is going to be the same. So you probably want to make it both a little shallower this way as well as not as wide that way. You may end up wanting to do it in the opposite direction. You might actually decide, I actually want this really deep. So in that case, you might actually change the rate of decrease. You might go, instead of having the decrease every right side row, I'm going to do it every second right side row. So it really slows that rate of decrease down as you're going up. So you can actually determine all that. You can take some graph paper out where you're able to actually just basically draw out using knitted graph paper. I'd actually suggest pulling that up and just printing some knitted graph paper out, because with knitted graph paper, it's a little bit like you're trying to, how can I put it, draw up your stitches or knit your stitches on paper without ever actually having to sit down and knit the whole way through. So it means that you can kind of make mistakes as you're going along on the paper, which is much easier to scribble out and to set aside and to then be able to go and say, okay, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. So knitted graph paper is going to be your friend for these kind of modifications. And then you can look at what you've knit so far. You can see how many rows am I going to have for that space of work, and you can draw that up, and then you draw up what do I want the shape to look like, and you can actually go basically just count out the blocks. It's as basic as that. You know, it can be very visual, kind of see what it's going to look like really. So you know, if you kind of like the idea of these modifications, do make sure that you actually hit subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be doing a full series on talking about different things that you can modify, different ways of modifying it. So if you subscribe, you will be sure to hear all about them. So that's the first type, where you've got bottom up and you're doing decreases. It's a little easier if you're doing it top down, because you can actually, you know, you can wing it a bit more and you can actually try it on. So if this was from the top down, and you decided you're going to change how wide the neck is here. So you're like, actually, I'm going to take a few more stitches that will be on the shoulders and not on the neckline. Then you will just effectively have less decreases straight away. You may decide, I still want it a little bit deeper. So you might go for a few rows where you go straight, and then you start your increases this time going down. and you don't have to do as many calculations because it's just going to stop when you reach the number of stitches you want. So just keep a close eye on the number of stitches that you have and what it's going to look like in your knitting. So that'd be the most straightforward one, where you're not actually changing the V-neck to a different shape, you're just changing the depth of it or the width of it. The bigger change would be to change to something like this, where you actually want to make a crew neck or a circular neck rather than a V-neck. So that one is going to be a little bit more involved. Same questions you're going to ask. The first one is it bottom up or top down? Again, top down, little bit more flexible, a bit more straightforward. The basic way that you're going to look at curving a circular neck is you've got to think of it as very slow. It's changing the direction that it's moving in. So initially it will be straight depending on how deep you want it. Then you're going to start curving a little bit in this way. So that would be ones where you might have every right side row, a bit like with this, you'll have, and if it's top down, an increase. Then if you want to bring it in much more quickly, you will then start doing an increase on the right side and the wrong side row, so it starts bringing it inwards much faster. And then finally you will have a cast on all the way across the front. If it's a cardigan, it would be half on this side and half on this side, so that won't change. Sweater, obviously, it will be all the way across the front, but it's just going to be it's not going to be a constant rate of increase, or in this case decrease. It's going to be looking at it slowly. You can also go take that knitting graph paper out and you can start sketching it up to see what the slope is going to look like and kind of to determine how it's going to step. A rule of thumb that I use that I find very useful is I will take the total number of neck stitches. So if it was 30 stitches, divide it by 3, and generally speaking I'll take about a third, so 10 stitches across the front for a cast on, give or take. Doesn't have to be very exact, but just roughly that's about what you're looking at for the cast on across the front. And then the rest of it can be slow decreases. So that's, slow increases or slow decreases. If you're going bottom up, obviously it's going to be the opposite. So you'll come as far as here, and then about a third of the stitches you're going to decrease across the front, or do a bind off in that case. Then you will decrease on the right side and the wrong side row for a few rows. The bigger sizes, you'll do more rows because you've got more decreases you're going to want to get through very quickly. And then you move to just the right side rows until you're finished. So it gives you that nice curved opening is what you're looking for. So that's just a kind of a basic overview as to the kind of things you're going to want to think about depending on looking at top up versus top down, changing either the V-neck or changing completely to a circular yoke. But knitting graph paper, I think, is going to be your friend because it does make the whole process much simpler. I hope you enjoyed today's Ask Knitters video. If you want to watch more in this series, make sure you subscribe. The next video coming up is going to be about how you modify a crew neck into a sweater. So watch on if you want to see the next one. And thank you for watching.